Plus, imagine that they're fairly butch lesbians if they're women. So the work situation in Northwest Indiana is bad. The work situation if you're a butch lesbian, I mean, really, what else are you going to do? Plus, lesbians, because we don't have access to men's salary, have to support ourselves and kids. Like you're going to do that on a Walmart salary? Not really. So you have to have a strategy that lets you get some level of income. And for women, those options are limited, and this is one of the few. So people stay because there's nowhere else to go. But also, this is harder, but there's a certain way that violence and difficulty are part of life in blue-collar, working-class America, right? So if somebody beats you up at work, it's going to feel less traumatizing to you if you kind of expect to get beaten up, if sort of physical conflict is a part of your culture and life and way of interacting with people. So one thing that's true of the lesbians is they expect to be harassed at the mill. They expect to be harassed wherever they go. And women, any women in the mill have to expect to be harassed, right? If you're a woman going into a man's world, people are going to give you shit. That's just going to happen. If you're a lesbian in Northwest Indiana, you know how to handle that. If somebody starts hassling you, you're not shocked and you know how to respond. And if you're a non-white lesbian in Northwest Indiana, even more. You expect to get grief wherever you go, however you go, and that's just part of the territory, and you know how to handle it. You know how to respond immediately, physically, verbally, just, you don't like curl up and die. You just fight back. And that's just what you expect to do. So that's one of the reasons that lesbians do so well in the mills. They're used to being harassed and they know how to react and they just do that automatically. But given that there's a lot of rape and violence and attacks and brutality and stuff and danger, why do people stay? There are few options and they like it. The work has so many rewards financially and socially and statusly, and there aren't a lot of options, so people stay for some complicated network of those reasons. You had a question too?
Yeah, I was just gonna, what is the range of salaries of people who work there?
You looking for a job?
No.
Most of them made more than me. So they make 60 to 100,000, but they work so hard for that. So in order to get that involves a lot of overtime patchwork in. So you work a really lot of hours to make that kind of salary. And the other thing about the salary is it's in no way guaranteed over time. So 1 year you'll make 100,000, the next year you'll make 10,000 because of a lot of layoffs, and the next year you'll make nothing. Then you'll make 100. So the salaries sound way higher than they are. So, you think $1,000 for a blue-collar job, that's a lot. But if you add it up over the course of a career, there's so many layoffs, illnesses, rolling layoffs that get kind of cut in there that over the course of your life, you're not seeing that kind of money usually. But yeah, the ones that are left make about that amount of money if everything goes well for them.
So I've been hearing you talk a lot about illness. You could perhaps expect this question from me, but can you talk about the presence of disability in these stories and issues of healthcare, right? What does this intermittent job do to sustained healthcare and disability issues more broadly?
So I had one steelworker say, in this completely calm manner, I've never seen anyone killed, just maimings. There's a lot of pinch points, and this apparently means that some part of your garment or protective wear gets caught in a machine and you get drug into it and lose body parts. So lots of steelworkers are missing fingers or toes or feet or have bad knees or there's a lot of kind of gradual wear and tear on your body from it. They also also all generally look older than they are. So this sort of chemicals in the air exhaustion and the physical nature of the work ages you in a way that ties into how we think of disability. And there's a lot of kind of devaluing of your body and your general person, right? So, and that goes back to working class stuff in the way that class is viewed in our culture right now. The way that you establish masculinity working in the male is by taking risks, physical risks with your body. Your body is the only thing you have to offer in the work sort of setting, since your mind is hardly valued. So essentially, you're somebody offering your body for a salary. And so the price is kind of taken out of your body, either through aging, cancer exposure, injury, some combination of those things. And that risk-taking that's physical gives you access to establishing or re-establishing your masculinity, which is really important for the gay men that I interviewed, because they're not given a lot of access to masculinity in working class culture because they're gay, or because people think they might be gay, or because they act in any way that identifies them with gay people. So risk-taking that's to some extent deliberate with bodies gets you in a lot of danger of having your body damaged. In terms of healthcare, the healthcare available to them is pretty limited. And one person that I interviewed had been dusted. So what this means is he's a heavy equipment operator. He drives ginormous trucks. And one factor of, I said that the steel mills were built a long time ago and haven't been renovated. So one factor means that the passages that you drive stuff through were built for horse carriages, and now they're traversed by semi-trucks. So he drove a huge semi-truck through this little tunnel that had been built for horse carriages. So this means that he had to tuck in the rear view windows, mirrors, things, so that he could get through this tunnel. And he couldn't see out the front windshield on this occasion because coke dust had been dumped in the bed of his truck. So there was all this dust everywhere. He couldn't see out the front window. So he's a big guy. So he opened the driver's side door and snorkeled, back, closed the door, went around it, and is cleaning the windshield off so that he can drive, and then goes over to the passenger side and is cleaning that off, and they dump another load in his truck bed, which he was not told would happen. So he's out, and they dump it, and he's breathing it. He tries to get in the passenger door, but it won't open because the wall's right there, so he can't get in. So he has to go around the front to the driver's side, open it and get in and sit in the truck. And so he's breathed in, who knows how much, coke dust. And the union won't support his claim because they said, you never should have left the truck bed. When you left the cab, that was taking your own risks, so we can't support your workers' comp claim. So, he has what kind of cancer and asthma because of what he breathed in out there, but, to clean off the windshield was his choice. He should have stayed in the cab, they say. So he's now on extended medical leave. And, that's just an example of the kind of attitude. There's this trade-off in the mills between safety and speed. There are jobs that you can do really fast in ways that are dangerous, or really slowly in ways that are safe. What are you going to do? Most people will just take the chance most of the time. And there has to be a change in work culture that says your body and your life are valuable. And to get people to think that, and the way that the union talks about it, they act like that's an individual choice. Like you could wake up one morning and say, no, I am a valuable person. When we all know that it's what culture does to you, right? If you're born in a certain sort of class, race, culture world where people tell you from the minute you're born till the minute you're dead that you're really not very special, it's not actually your job to convince yourself that you're special. Like you need to say, that's a structural thing that's happening to you, and we all need to do something to make you feel like your life
question. Besides U.S. Steel and Gary, what other mills did the 40 people in the community look at in that region?
There are 3 mills in the area owned by ArcelorMittal. East Chicago, Burns Harbor, and one that's over near Michigan City-ish. So 3 middle mills and U.S. Steel Gary Works was 35 of the 40 steelworkers. Then there are the 5 outliers. One of them worked in a mill in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, I think. One of them worked in a mill in Pittsburgh, and 3 of them worked in Hamilton, Ontario. There was a moment during this research that I thought, is it different in Canada? Because we have this whole kind of impression that Canada is the gay-friendly, health insurance open land of milk and honey, right? So I wanted to know, is it better there for queer steelworkers? How is it better? So I did a research trip where I went to Hamilton, Ontario, and met ultimately 3 people and interviewed them. And it isn't better, it's the same in every meaningful way. So some things are different, right? I called the B&B to set it up. I got this like grandma on the phone, and she said, "Why are you coming to Canada?" And you know, I didn't really know what to say, so I told her. And in the US, if I was talking to a B&B grandma, I assumed there would be like awkward silence, and then she'd be like, "Breakfast is at 7." But no, this is Canada. So she was like, "Oh, that's great. Let me give you the name of the gay media person in Toronto, and she'll hook you up." Which I did not expect, right? So then I thought, oh, Canada is different. But then I get there, and it's not different at all. In working class enclaves, it's the same as it is here. There's only one gay bar in Hamilton, has no sign, no visible street indicator. I had to go around the back. They didn't want anybody seen coming and going from the bar. And that's where the steelworker with the 4 paralyzed neck vertebrae lives. So it's not better, it's not different at all. So that was a long answer, again, to a short question. 3 middle mills and U.S. Steel Gary Works. The middle mills are owned by a Belgian Indian corporate conglomerate thing that owns like 80% of the steel mills in the world now. But you had 2 questions.
Second question. Where did the 40 people where did they live? Can you generalize? Were the suburbs, rural area, the northern towns of northwest Indiana?
They're very spread out. So I live in Miller, which is a neighborhood within Gary that has sort of intellectual, gay, Jewish, fringy people. And a few of them live there. Some of them live in this, well, 2 of them live in this town in the southern part of northwest Indiana that I think of as just an intersection. I mean, it has a bar and a post office. And when the second one called and said they live there too, I'm like, people live there? I mean, but you know, they were people who grew up there and their grandparents had farms there and they still live there. So that would be on the rural side. At one point in my research, I thought that I would get interviews by going to, say, supermarkets in Gary and posting signs with little rip-off tabs. And I did this in Gary for a long time. And every time I went into a supermarket in Gary, I was kind of scared that I was going to be like harassed or something because I was putting this big thing with rainbow flags on it, and nobody ever responded. And then I asked, like, why is nobody responding? And people said, steelworkers don't live in Gary. They work here, but they make enough money that they live in Maryville or Cherville or Hobart or, I've only lived in Indiana for 3 years, so the suburbs all blend together in my head, but they live very spread out. And they don't generally live in Gary. Other questions?
We have time for one more question.
One more? Go ahead.
I don't know if this is too far out, but it seems to me what I get tired of hearing is male, female, when I know God has created a rainbow of sexual orientation, and it seems impossible to educate. How do you educate
say that they accept it a lot in their lives. Like, the people that I interviewed are every kind of gender continuum spectrum ever, both in terms of their sexual history, gender presentation. So in terms of having what we would consider an educated language, they don't have it. But in terms of their behavior, in many ways, they're way more open, flexible, and liberated than other people. So one of the things that I want my book to do is demonstrate that there's a lot of pleasure, variety. There are a lot of ways to be queer that exist in the mills that we don't see, that we need to be able to see and identify as part of the spectrum of what it means to be queer, what it means to be gay in the world today. So I don't want to have a model where we're like educating blue-collar people about how to be gay. I want to have a model where we're saying there are tons of ways to be gay. These people have a really meaningful, interactive storytelling, lived, pleasurable, exciting way to be gay out here, and we need to include that in our understanding of what gay possibility is, what queer life is. Give them access to that, give us access to them. So that one of the main things that I hope my book to do is tell the stories of people and say, this is part of it, you need to include this too. Because otherwise we just have the white architects from Boys Town. And that's not the story. The story is all these people too, and what they're doing, and where and how they're experiencing bodies, pleasures, identities as they exist through time, through space, in all these cool and interesting ways. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Kind of?